When a woman and her dog discover a human bone on their walk, it was absolutely jarring. What happened next was absolutely disturbing. Upon further investigation, it turns out there were multiple victims buried in this area and there might be a serial killer on the loose. This case/cases are 16 years old and still unsolved. These women and girls deserve justice. Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine-chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope that you guys are all having a great week. And let's jump into it today. So today's case does take place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, I used to live in Albuquerque. It's a beautiful city. It often gets a bad rap due to crime and gang activity, but it really is a wonderful and beautiful city. It's very bright and lively, and I miss Albuquerque. I usually try to make it back like once a year, and I'm actually going next month, so I'm very excited. I actually worked at a place that is mentioned in this episode, in the neighborhood, actually. And honestly, when I worked in that area, I had no idea about this, that one of the suspects committed a lot of crimes around that certain area. So yes, thank you for joining me today, and let's get in. So there are no reviews about the West Mesa specifically, but since part of it is included in the Petroglyph National Monument, I found some negative reviews about that national monument. Thor says, super boring. I haven't seen any petroglyphs, sadly. Not enough signaling and information. The visitor center is separated from the park. Weird. I agree. It's a little strange. And the place we're going to be talking about today is the West Mesa. And just a little bit about the Petroglyph National Monument. It's just over 7,000 acres, and it's one of the largest petroglyph sites in North America. Now, the monument is jointly managed by the National Park Service, the state of New Mexico, and the city of Albuquerque. So these reviews are about this national monument. Someone with the name Crime Stat Respecter, they kind of talk about some specifics about the time and things that were happening, like Beowulf and the Odyssey, and this is in their Google review. And then their last statement says, people were composing epic works before these rock drawings were made. I don't understand why people are supposed to be impressed by some native graffiti. Yes, because that's all it is. That was sarcasm. Dylan said, it really just looks like someone let their 3-year-old have a marker to draw on the rocks. How can we be sure these are legitimate? May once have been appealing, but now you're just surrounded by houses. Not worth the drive. James said, I went here like 25 years ago. It was pretty lame then. If you want to hike, I guess it would be a place to go. Just reviewing so my phone quits asking me to review. Matt said, just another rock pile in this dry gulch of a desert. The only thing you may walk away with is a sunburn and or a rattlesnake bite. If you are on I-40, just keep going. Not worth the miles detour. So a lot of people have a lot of feelings about this national monument in this area. I have hiked in this area before. It's really pretty. That guy's not lying about the rattlesnake bites. This is like prime rattler territory. And when you go, you have to be extremely careful where you step. In terms of views, the petroglyphs are very, very pretty. And most of these are on volcanic rock. So the rock is this like dark ash black color, and the petroglyphs are lighter. So they're actually like there's a nice contrast and they're easy to see. One of my favorite pictures I took of my time in Albuquerque was on a trail at Petroglyph National Monument because you're up on the West Mesa and you can kind of look down in the valley and you get this nice zoomed out picture of Albuquerque and all the colorful homes and against the sandias. It's just really pretty area. So the West Mesa is an elevated landmass lying west of the Rio Grande in the Albuquerque area. So I say Rio Grande, Rio Grande. You know, I've heard it both ways. Either way to say it is fine. And I'm just going to say Rio Grande because that's how I say it. So this area stretches from Parajito Mesa in the South Valley northward to Bernalillo in New Mexico. So it's kind of, I don't know, like if you've ever been to Albuquerque, I'm sure that you've driven in this area. I'm actually staying kind of on the West Mesa next month, and I'm very excited. So, like I said, this area is kind of desolate, and 20 something years ago, it was pretty desolate, and it was just a mesa, and mesa means table in Spanish. So it's kind of just like this elevated desert area. The western edge of the mesa is the Rio Puerco near the Laguna Pueblo, about 20 miles west of Albuquerque. A large portion of the West Mesa is part of Petroglyph National Monument and is bisected by Interstate 40 and Historic Route 66. There are numerous subdivisions with new homes being built on the lower portion of the West Mesa as the city of Albuquerque continues to expand further to the west. Now let's talk about Albuquerque for a little bit. Albuquerque is located in the Albuquerque Basin, and it's actually flanked by the Sandia Mountains to the east and the West Mesa to the west. The Rio Grande and Bosque flow, they like north to south through the middle of the city. Very, very pretty. It's just, I don't know, if you've seen Breaking Bad, I really like how they filmed in Albuquerque and kind of used some of the natural settings as filming locations because it really does look like that out there. And it's not like a movie set or like you have to drive super far out to get those views. It's just a very beautiful area. So a little bit of history for you. During the early 20th century, New Mexico's dry climate actually attracted many tuberculosis patients to Albuquerque in search of a cure. This was, of course, before penicillin was found to be effective against TB. There were several sanitarias that were developed on the West Mesa for TB patients. So that's a little dark, and I don't know, there's people seeking treatment, but a lot of those people did die because penicillin was not being used at this time to treat TB. So Presbyterian Hospital and St. Joseph Hospital, and those are two of the largest hospitals in the Southwest, they actually had their beginnings during this time period. Because this area that we're going to be talking about today isn't like a national park or a national rec area, I just wanted to talk about some of the darker things that have happened in and around this area. And one of those darker things being, on April 11th, 1950, a United States Air Force B-29 bomber carrying a nuclear weapon crashed into the mountain near Manzano Base. On May 22nd, 1957, a B-36 accidentally dropped a Mark 17 nuclear bomb 4.5 miles from the control tower while landing at Kirtland Air Force Base. Only the conventional trigger detonated as the bomb was unarmed. So these incidents were not reported as they were classified as secret for decades, which that's kind of scary. Nuclear weapons are being dropped in the desert on accident and the government's not telling the public. But I think, that's the government for us. There's a lot of things they don't tell us. And then there's a popular hike, and I actually have never done this hike because It was a little too rugged for me to feel comfortable doing it by myself. When I lived in Albuquerque, I lived by myself. I shared a house with other people, but those people were strangers. I was doing travel healthcare. And none of the people I lived with liked to hike. And so I never did this trail we're going to talk about, but I was asked a lot, have you done this trail? Have you done this trail? You can go see, plane wreckage. And I'm like, no, I haven't done it. But like I said, it's a really popular trail. Now, TWA Flight 230 had departed Albuquerque for Santa Fe early in the morning on February 19th, 1955. As the weather was overcast with very, very poor visibility, their air traffic control clearance was to proceed via instruments to intercept the localizer at Santa Fe, which was a procedure that would normally allow them to climb and navigate away from the mountains safely. Sadly, it was later discovered that a malfunction in the instruments led the pilots to believe they were flying away from the Sandias when they were in fact pointed directly at them. By the time their error was discovered, it was too late, and 16 people met their tragic end only a few minutes into the flight. Like I said, there's a trail, and you can go view this plane wreckage. So lots of dark history associated with this desert area. And today we're going to talk about something that happened in 2009. And the city of Albuquerque really hasn't recovered since. On February 2nd, 2009, a woman named Christine Ross and her dog Ruka were out on a walk. They had left their home in Albuquerque's West Mesa, and this was pretty routine for them, and Ruka, like any dog, loved exploring on walks. But something happened on this walk that wasn't quite expected. Ruka found a large bone protruding from the earth, and this find would unearth more secrets than the desert ever meant to reveal. Christine could feel that something was not right with this bone. Like, she had a gut feeling that this wasn't just like an animal bone. Because in this desert, it's not uncommon to come across scattered animal bones, but she knew something about this bone wasn't right. So she took a picture of it and then sent a text message to her sister, who was a registered nurse. A little while later, Christine's sister contacted her and told her that the bone resembled a human femur. What a shocking find on a walk. You know, you set off, you think you're going to have a nice walk, and your dog finds human remains. So, of course, what Christine did next was contact the Albuquerque Police Department, and it was quickly determined that the bone was, in fact, human. An investigation immediately opened, and you'd never or might believe what they found upon further digging. It wasn't just that one bone that was found. There were multiple bodies or remains in this area. And so police worked with archaeologists to painstakingly excavate the bodies. Quote, "It was a huge, huge crime scene. As they found them, more and more parents were getting concerned." And that is from the police chief at the time. During the ensuing weeks, detective uncovered the skeletal remains of 11 women and one unborn child, all buried in makeshift graves. They were all between 15 and 32 years old. Most of them were Hispanic and were involved with drugs and sex work. Obviously, this was a horrific discovery made, and no one expected. You never expect to find human remains when you go outside, but it is pretty common. But what is uncommon is finding so many people buried in the same place. And investigators needed to determine just when these women were killed. After all of the autopsies and the DNA dating were done, it was determined that these murders took place between 2001 and 2005. Satellite imagery taken between 2003 and 2005 shows tire marks and patches of disturbed soils in the area where the remains were recovered. According to satellite photos, the last victim was buried in 2005. By 2006, development had encroached on the area, and soon after, the site was disturbed, buried, and platted for residential development. It's obvious that it was kind of like speculation for the cause of death of most of these women, but authorities have speculated that these victims were actually strangled. In a 2002 Albuquerque Police Department video, cold case investigator Liz Thompson said, quote, "These women weren't shot. There was no evidence that they were shot or killed or blunt force trauma. This complicates the case and makes it a little harder to solve because we don't have the clear indicators of what actually caused their deaths," end quote. It was sheer luck that these remains were found because due to the 2008 housing bubble collapse, development on the west side halted before housing could be built at the burial site. After neighbors complained of flooding at the platted site, which was actually due to the burial of the natural arroyo, the developer built a retaining wall to channel stormwater to a retention pond built in the approximate area of the burial site, inadvertently exposing the bones to the surface. So whoever buried these women here did not ever think that they would be found, obviously. And it was kind of just coincidence that their remains were discovered, because if the houses had been built when they were planned to, we would never know about these victims. Police suspected that the bodies were all buried by the same person or persons and may be the work of a serial killer who has since come to be referred to as the West Mesa Bone Collector. No official suspects have ever been named in connection with the murders. They have named a few suspects, but nothing nothing actually. People have been investigated, but nothing official. And in 2010, a reward of up to $100,000 was being offered for information, leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible. Before we talk about suspects, we need to talk about who these women were. Now, like I said, the remains were discovered in 2009, and they were identified pretty quickly after that. And all of these women and girls actually went missing between 2001 and 2005. Monica Diana Candelaria was 22 when she disappeared on May 15th, 2003. Victoria Ann Chavez, 26, disappeared on June 5th, 2003. Selania Tareen Edwards was 15 when she disappeared on August 17th, 2003. Law enforcement authorities in Lawton, Oklahoma had classified her as a runaway, and she was reported missing in 2003. In May of 2004, Edwards had been seen associating with prostitutes on East Colfax Avenue in Aurora, Colorado. She may have been staying at the Ranger Motel. Edwards was last seen in the company of 3 other women, Lucretia, Ty, and Diamond. She might have been using the nickname Mimi or Chocolate. Edwards was 15 years old when she was last seen. Doreen Marquez, 24, disappeared October 10th, 2003. Veronica Romero, 28, disappeared on February 14th, 2004. 2 cousins were actually found. Cousins Jamie Katrina Barella, 15, and Evelyn Jesus Maria Salazar, 27, both disappeared on March 26, 2004. Salazar had been identified as a victim of a serial killer approximately 2 months earlier, so of this serial killer. Both young women were heading to a park near San Mateo and Gibson in southeast Albuquerque when they disappeared. Virginia Cloven, 24, disappeared April 13th, 2004. She was reported missing in 2004. Julie Cindy Nieto, 24, disappeared July 15th, 2004. Cinnamon Elks, 32, disappeared on August 20th, 2004. Michelle Gina Valdez, 22, disappeared September 22nd, 2004. 10 of the victims, they all had a common link. They actually had ties to both drugs and prostitution. The 11th victim, Jamie Barella, has no known involvement in either of these particular activities. Now, there was an investigator named Detective Ida Lopez, and she had been working with Albuquerque Police Department for quite a while. And prior to 2009, she actually had constructed a list of all of the women missing in Albuquerque with ties to prostitution and drug addiction who had gone missing between 2001 and 2006. And from that list, 10 were confirmed to be buried at West Mesa, although 9 women with similar backgrounds remain missing. So people think there might actually be more victims. Over time, a number of men have attracted police attention, though not named as full suspects in connection with these murders. Fred Reynolds was a pimp who knew one of the missing women and reportedly had photos of missing sex workers, but he died of natural causes in January 2009, so that was a dead end. He died right before these women were found. Another suspect is Lorenzo Montoya, and he was a local pressman at a printer shop. Now, he lived less than 3 miles from the burial site, and in 2006, there were reportedly dirt trails leading from his trailer park to the site. He had actually been arrested for violent attacks on sex workers and had threatened to kill his girlfriend and bury her in lime. Coworkers said that he had talked about killing women and burying them on the West Mesa. In December of 2006, Montoya strangled 19-year-old sex worker Sherika Hill at his trailer and then was shot to death by the teen's boyfriend, Frederick Williams. Because Montoya, he was kind of caught in this act. He was putting her lifeless body into the trunk of his car, and Frederick shot Montoya. At the time, law enforcement said that they did not believe this was the first time he had killed someone because the crime was too brutal. My question is if he was bragging to coworkers about murdering women and burying them in West Mesa, why none of them reported him to police? That's an extremely disturbing claim, and I'm shocked that no one reported this man to police or submitted an anonymous tip or something. I mean, that is just absolutely wild that he wasn't caught before because of all of these statements that he was making. While searching his home, detectives came across a home recording found on his camera. There was only a section of the video that had been released to the public. And according to the police, the first part of the video shows Montoya having sex with an unidentified and possibly dead woman before fading to black and transitioning to show a wall and a bed in the foreground. During this section of the video, noises can be heard of which sound like Montoya tearing duct tape from a roll and opening a garbage bag. It has been theorized that this was Montoya preparing a body for disposal. Screenshots of the unidentified woman have also been released in hopes that she can be identified. But as far as I can tell, that has not happened yet. In August 2010, police searched several properties in Joplin, Missouri, associated with local photographer and businessman Ron Irwin in connection with the West Mesa cases. They confiscated tens of thousands of photos from him, who reportedly used to visit the state fair in Albuquerque. Now, they did confirm that they had cleared him as a suspect, and I really wonder what made them think he was a suspect to begin with. In December 2010, convicted Colorado serial killer Scott Lee Kimball stated that he was being investigated for the West Mesa murders, but he denied killing the women. I think it's weird he would just say, I'm being investigated for this, if he didn't do it, but I don't know. Fucked up people do fucked up shit. So in 2014, a breakthrough on a decades-old case caused Albuquerque police to become interested in Joseph Blea as a suspect for the murders. Blea had been dubbed the mid-school rapist for his activities in the 1980s. Police say he would often break into homes of 13 to 15-year-old girls who lived near McKinley Middle School in Albuquerque and rape them. Now, this is what I'm talking about. I actually worked at McKinley Middle School when I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's not in the nicest of areas, but it's a really great middle school, and there's a lot of homes around it. So I think it's interesting that he chose this area specifically. In one case, there was a DNA sample, but the rape test kit was not retested until 2010, eventually linking Blea to the rape. In 2015, Blea was also suspected by police of killing a sex worker. His DNA sample was located on the inner waistband and belt of a sex worker found dead on Central Avenue, which is a notorious street for sex work in the eastern part of the city. In addition, a tree tag from a nursery was found in the area where the West Mesa victim's body were buried, and it was tracked to a nursery that Blea once frequented. I read online that he actually worked there, but I'm unsure 100%. Now, he did, this is disturbing, but he had women's underwear and jewelry not belonging to his wife or daughter in his home, and allegedly told a cellmate that he had hired the West Mesa victims, who he called, quote, trashy. So during this case that happened in 2015, he was being tried for the rape cases. He was sentenced to 36 years in June of 2015. Now, I don't know. It's just, this guy is scum of the earth. I think personally, out of all of the suspects or people that could be linked to these serial murders, I think Joseph Blea is probably the one that is responsible. That little tree tag could have blown over there, but this guy was a violent guy. He'd already killed and raped before, and I think for sure that this was him. Of course, everybody always brings up human trafficking ring. That was tipped anonymously to authorities at Albuquerque Police Department and the FBI. And so, I don't know, there's been several links to like rural Texas and other Western cities, but this doesn't feel to me like it was human trafficking ring. I think our likely suspect is probably Joseph Blea. At least 19 women and teens vanished from the streets of Albuquerque from 2003 through 2006, and 8 of which are still missing. In June 2018, more bones were found near the site of the burials, but these were later determined to be ancient and not related to the West Mesa murders. According to reporting done by C.M. Frankie for A&E True Crime, Dirk Duran Gibson, a former University of New Mexico associate professor and author of several books about serial killers, he thinks the murders could have been perpetrated by individuals involved in organized crime or biker gangs who hung out on the same strip where the victims work. Quote, their vulnerable lifestyle put them in contact with a lot of nefarious people. Those women knew something that they shouldn't have known, end quote. This man also says that he's come to the conclusion that there were probably 3 people involved in these crimes. There was a boss or bosses and an intermediary and a hitman. He also says that these cases may never be solved for reasons including, DNA deterioration, witnesses who won't talk because they're terrified of perpetrators, and distrust for police. And there's not actually a crime scene. This was just a burial site. Now, I want to talk about Detective Ida Lopez. She is a true hero and a true badass. She was a young APD officer, and she actually, like I said, compiled the list of missing women and worked with their families long before the bodies were found. Her whole career, she's worked this case, starting at a time when the leadership at the Albuquerque Police Department did not think that the missing young women were worth investigating, because of their lifestyle. A lot of these women did not receive proper investigations. And Ida Lopez is the only one who did a damn thing about it. And I just have to give her major props. And currently, she's still searching for the 8 women who have not been found. Now, This is, I don't know, this is absolutely insane. So she actually retired, but she returned to APD for basically on a contract basis to solely investigate these missing women and the West Mesa murders. Now, if you know me, you know that I had to go to Reddit for some dirt, and this was something I found on Reddit about this case. Quote, I am from Albuquerque, and my stepfather is a main suspect. It is believed among most of our family that he murdered not only these women, but several other prostitutes in the area. His name is Joseph Blea. He also killed Jennifer Schrimm. And then they also said, thanks, it was quite traumatizing. He would kill my pets when I misbehaved. In front of me. He would do that in front of her. He also used a hose with a squirt gun to blind a neighborhood stray. I'll never forget the bloody eyes when he was done, end quote. So that, I mean, who knows if this is actually the person that is Joseph Blea's stepdaughter, but holy crap. I mean, I think most of us know, if we like true crime, that harming animals is usually a precursor for other activities like murdering humans. And this guy was doing it. And just imagine having to live with him in that house. That would have been absolutely terrifying. As far as I can tell, Joseph is still alive. And I don't know, maybe hopefully in the future, they'll get a confession or they'll link DNA or something. It's still an active case, and investigating this case has gotten easier over time as technology has advanced. These investigators say that they've been going and reviewing evidence, and they're hoping that technology-wise, they could test a piece of evidence and it would tell them something important. But like that professor said earlier, he's not sure if these cases will get solved due to those factors. Now, I believe with technology advancing and them reviewing evidence and photos and aerial photos, I think the killer is there. I think it's right in front of us. And until someone really fine-tooth combs this and reopens it and starts tracking down leads and old leads, I think it's possible. Whether it was multiple people or one person, these women deserve justice, and those 8 other women deserve to be found. Thanks to Christine Ross and her dog Ruka, these women were discovered, and an investigation can happen and is still happening to find their murderer or murderers. As always, recreate responsibly, and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for sticking around for the, after show personal talk. I know that I recently reported that I'd be doing like a collaboration with a podcast that might be put on hold for the time being due to the current state of national park affairs, which is honestly terrifying and saddening. I'm so sad that so many people lost their jobs, and now our parks are going to suffer because of it. And I don't want to get political here, but if you thought our parks were understaffed before, just wait until the summer and just wait until the next year or so, because I don't know how it's going to be. So that collaboration might or might not happen. Just too many things are going on. It's kind of crazy right now. In terms of personal outdoorsy things, I don't know. Next month, I have my spring break. We are going to New Mexico. We are actually staying in Bernalillo County area at the Tamaya Resort. It's beautiful there. I cannot wait to do some hiking. And I'm really excited because we are going to a national monument that I've been to before 8 years ago, but it was closed during COVID and it just opened up this year. So it was closed for 5 years. And I'm excited because I get to show my husband and he's never been there. And it's at the Kasha Katwe Tent Rocks National Monument on the Kachiti Reservation. And so that is super exciting. And I don't know, I'm excited for going to New Mexico. It's a really great state. It's underrated. And if you haven't been, I highly suggest you go. Albuquerque is great. Santa Fe is great. I love the Jemez Mountains. There's great hiking there. There's natural hot springs you can hike to and soak in. There's just something very spiritual to me about New Mexico, and it's beautiful. The sunrises, the sunsets, the blue sky. I swear the sky is bluer there than any other state. Anyways, if you haven't been to New Mexico, I highly recommend it. I also love Taos. So nothing new on outdoors things. It snowed a lot last week and I keep saying it, but I am so sick of all this snow. And I'm thankful for it because we need it for drought purposes and the reservoirs. So I'm hoping that all of this snow, well, I will get to enjoy the benefits of it up in the mountains this summer. So I hope you guys have a great week. And like I said, be looking out for some cases I'm covering that you might not know or never have heard about. And I can't wait to share them with you. I'll see you guys next time.